So we have about 3 1/4 cups of flour in this bowl already pre-measured. But before we work with that, we've got to cream some butter and some sugar. So here we have 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Why don't you put that in there? 5 tablespoons softened. And we have 1 1/4 cups of sugar. So we'll put that in. So what creaming means, Calliope, is that we have to get this butter and sugar so well combined that you're not going to feel any grit in the bottom of the bowl. So the butter and sugar is really going to be really well combined. So while that's creaming, let's talk about the other ingredients that we're going to have. So with the flour, we want some baking powder. So there's 3 1/4 teaspoons. You can put that in there. 3 1/4 teaspoons. And then you have a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Do you want to put that in?
Okay.
Put the salt in. Mix that all around.
Do we use baking soda too?
No, we don't use baking soda. You want to use baking soda when you're doing something that has an acid in it. So like if you were making cookies that had buttermilk, you would have to use baking soda. So now we're going to add our eggs. So we have 4 large eggs, and to that we're going to add some vanilla, real vanilla. So vanilla extract has 35% alcohol. You want to make sure you're buying the real thing by looking on the bottle and seeing that it says extract, not flavoring. Flavoring is something entirely different. The egg mixture. So now we're going to add the flour, a little bit at a time here. And we're going to get that mixed. All right, I'm going to take half of this out and just leave it right there. Okay? So I'm going to leave this other half in. And I'm going to mix in this some dried cherries. And we can take that out. And we're going to put it right here. I'm going to do something with it. We'll scoop this back up, put it in here, and then we're going to add some nuts. How about these are slivered almonds.
Okay.
So Calliope, we're going to add some flavoring to this one, some brandy. So about a tablespoon of brandy. And we're going to add some cocoa. So we're going to make this a chocolate one. So in goes the cocoa. So now you mix this until it's all uniformly chocolate. So we took half of the chocolate dough out. And now we're going to add candied orange peel.
Ooh, yummy.
So this is homemade. This was made by Ruth Moore, who works on our show.
Oh.
But you could always use commercially prepared orange peel. I think that goes nice together with chocolate. So in goes the orange peel. So, well, that's that one. So you want to chop up the chocolate. It's got it small enough so because we have to put it in the dough, back in the dough. And once we have that, then we have our Tanti Biscotti that we're going to do. So let's work with this one first because this has got more than the others, and we're going to make 2 logs out of this. So you take one of them. You want to sprinkle a little flour down on the board here? Okay, good. And then you roll them into a log using light pressure. Now you can make them as fat or as skinny as you want them, but I like them about this size. And you want to neaten up the edges, and then you put them on a baking sheet like that.
Will they rise and like puff up?
They will because we put baking powder
Oh.
in here, but you want to make sure that they're about the same size. So let's do, why don't you do this one? A little bit more flour. Okay. Nice dough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Make sure there's no cracks or holes anywhere. See, this is a little bigger anyway because I have more, but that doesn't matter. We're making cookies. We're not scientists. And you pat it into that log. Now, while we're doing this, your oven, you have it preheated to 350. Leave that one there. And then you can do this one. A little bit more flour. Okay. So now what we have to do is bake these at 350 for about 20 or 25 minutes, just until these are kind of firm to the touch, but they're not done yet. Once we do that, I'll show you what to do next. Here they are, already cooled, Clyde. You see how firm they are? Mm-hmm. You see how firm they are? So now this is the part where the word biscotto comes from, which means twice cooked. So we baked these once, and now we have to bake them again. So what we want to do is cut down straight on the diagonal. Just do like that. You can make them as wide or as narrow as you want.
Whoa.
But this is the type of cookie that Italians would use for a cafe, or if they're going to have an espresso, or they're going to have wine, where they're going to dip biscotti in wine. So when you cut them on the diagonal, you want to lay them back on the bake sheet that they came off of, because now you're going to bake them again for about five more minutes or so, because you want them to get hard. You want them to be somewhat crispy. So you lay them on their side. And this is a great cookie to do ahead of time, because you can freeze this cookie. Nope, on its side.
Oh.
So when they're in the oven for about 5 minutes or so, you want to go back and look and see, turn them, I usually turn them over to the other side, make sure that they're nicely browned everywhere. So that's going to take about 5 minutes, and then you want to let them cool, and then the next thing we have to do is make the glaze. So here we have some water in the bottom of a pan, and we just want to bring that to simmer, and then in a bowl, sitting in the pan, we have melted some white chocolate. Remember, it's not really chocolate, it's milk solids with sugar. But this is going to be the glaze for our cookies. So the chocolate is melted, and it will melt from the residual heat that's coming up from the bottom of the pan. So you want to turn it off. You don't want to burn this. Now we want to add a little bit of oil. So here's about a teaspoon of oil. You want to put that in for me? Just vegetable oil or sunflower oil. That just helps with the glaze, with the look of it, the shine of it. And when it's like that, it's really ready. So now you're ready to dip your cookies. You don't have to do this part. This is not required. But if you want to make it a little fancier, it's a good thing to know. All right, so now that we have that, all we have to do now is get those cookies and glaze them. So Calliope, here they are, twice baked now. See how hard they are? Mm-hmm. And they have a little brownness on them, see, on both sides. So now all you do is take them like that, see, and just let the excess drip off.
Oh, that's easy.
Isn't that pretty? And they look like that. So let's do these. Let's do all the white ones first. So the next time you go to Italy and you see biscotti, you can say, I know exactly how those are made, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and this is what that young guy who stayed with me wanted to eat for breakfast. Biscotti.
I wish I could have cookies for breakfast.
I know. Don't we all? Okay. All right, that's great. And these need to dry, so they just leave them on I have them on a rack here with some wax paper underneath. And I think the glaze just makes them a little prettier, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you wanted to make them ahead of time, you could do this and freeze them without the glaze. Then you could just take them out, make the glaze, and you would have, saved yourself a little work. But these can be frozen. I like to make these at Christmas time. This is one of my go-to cookies at Christmas time. Okay, so there's a half dozen for you and a half dozen for me.
Yum, yum.